Tonight's featured reader is Ingrid Wendt. Eugene poet Ingrid Wendt has authored 5 books of poems and co-edited the Oregon Poetry Anthology From Here We Speak. An avid snorkeler, bird watcher, and volunteer at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, she has read her poems to open the Oregon State Legislature and has been featured on Garrison Keillor's The Writer's Almanac. So without any further ado, here is Ingrid.
I've just done something very reckless. I think I've left my phone in my pocket of my jacket back there, and I think the volume is not turned off. So we're going to take our chances. What would you rather? Should I go turn it off?
So reckless.
We'll take our chances. And then if it happens, it happens. Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Mark. It's great to be here. Thank you all for coming. It's a treat, really a treat. And I haven't had a new book out for almost 12 years now, but that doesn't mean I haven't been writing. I've got a chapbook I'm sending around, and I'm trying to put together. Can you hear me okay?
It's a little too low.
Oh, too loud?
Too
low. Okay. Yeah, you are taller than me. Okay, how's that? Okay. I have been writing, and if you wanted to go to my website, www.ingridwendt.com, I've got a recent poems column with lots of different things online as well as in print, but they've been, the PDF is uploaded to the website, so you can see some new things. And I do have a new and selected book I'm putting together. I just haven't got it out there yet. And so I'm going to read a variety of things, starting out with a poem that my writing group in Eugene helped me with. And 2 of them are here, Kelly Osborne from Eugene and Colette Tennant from Salem. And so you know this one, but I'm just going to start out with this one, no more words. And it's okay to laugh if you are so inclined, please. I read this one someplace and everybody wondered, can I laugh? Is that okay? When you're caught, before I go on, the title has a big word in it, an ineptitude. And I love using big words sometimes, and I'd like to think it's not just because my my college creative writing professor told me never use a multi-syllable word when you can use an Anglo-Saxon one. And I believed him for a long time. And then I thought, heck with that. So I love big words. So ineptitude is in the title. When you're caught in the net of ineptitude, kissed with a kiss that isn't the kiss you hoped for. Lips unmoving as fish lined up on ice, eyes wide open and blankly staring. Chin, a back and forth hand saw, hinged at the jaw, back and forth. Lips holding steady and pressed hard on yours, tempting as chopped octopus, robbed of all its famed intelligence. You who have waited so long for this, how can you say to him, no, this is not the meal all those months of flirting promised? But damned if his hands don't know precisely how to cut things short and move on. And this next one, I got some help with my writing group in this one too. This is taken almost verbatim from a story that told to me by my neighbor Linda Sage. She was telling me that she and her husband and son were taking their weekly walk along the Willamette River outside of the a memory care place where he was declining. And so the poem is titled What They Saw on Their Weekly River Walk, Taking Turns Pushing His Chair. And there are a number of poets here, so I'm just going to show you the way the poem is on the page. Can you see it dancing around, sort of dancing around all over the place? And what I'm trying to do is capture visually what was taking place in the air, what they saw. And another thing I learned from my writing group was haibunds. I'd never really been doing haibunds, never tried a haibun before. This is a kind of a haibun because there's the first page is just all one thing, and then the second page is a reflection on, it's like a haibun. It's like a haiku sort of, but it's longer than that. What they saw on their weekly river walk, taking turns pushing his chair. First to snare their attention was hawk, hovering, fluttering, just over water's smooth skin. And then the distraction. Mallard from nearby delta ponds, for some unknown reason, quacking close at their heels, so that when at last they turned back to the river, hawk was now high in the air, dancing around as hawks are not wont to do. And why? Just ahead of hawk sped nimble osprey, breakdancing solo with big fish in its talons. Holy cow! Hawk with its speed behind osprey's agility. Dodging, circling. 5 minutes or more it must have been, and then out of proverbial nowhere, bald eagle sails in behind hawk in hot pursuit of osprey with big fish in its beak. And just when it can't get any stranger, lo and behold, crow flaps to catch up with eagle sailing after hawk in hot pursuit of osprey with big fish. A scene straight out of Aesop or Native American myth. Who the foolish one? Who the wise? And then fish fell, who knows where, and there was no more story to tell. How brief that whole unpredictable sequence that plays and replays in the mind, in the sharing. How long it kept them going, my friends, flown by wonder, far from the body's ruthless, steady decline. And later, yes, later, even then. Kelly and Colette have heard this before, but I don't know if any of the rest of you have. I had the very great privilege when I was a graduate student at the U of O, it was a long time ago, of interviewing W.H. Auden when he gave a reading at the U of O, and my boyfriend worked for the paper. He had the business beat, but they gave him the task of interviewing Auden. Well, he had the business beat, so he asked me along because I was studying poetry, and I got to ask the questions of Auden. And one question I asked, because I was kind of desperate at what do the Register Guard readers want to read, I asked him, Mr. Auden, why do you write poetry? And his answer was, to help people enjoy life more or endure it better. And I thought, yes. And I think a lot of us who write, we might start out trying to get a grip on something intangible, something ineffable, trying to put it into words just for us. But then there comes a time when we turn to our reader, and if you're like me, you want to be of use, maybe sometimes. And to help people enjoy life more or endure it better has been something that I've kind of tried to live by. And also one of the ways to endure it better is to recreate, to read a poem and say somebody else knows what I've experienced. And the setting might be particular to the poet, but the essence of the experience is there. And Jane Hirschfield says something like, when you meet yourself in a great poem, your own life becomes enlarged. So I'm going to do a few samples here of poems over the years, but then go back to some very recent ones. And this is from my first book. I brought my books up here just to have them with me. My security blanket, not really, just kidding. But just, sometimes when I've got plans, right? But sometimes I get an impulse, I want to read that poem. So I wanted to have them here, just in case. But there are some on the back table. They're discounted price, $10 instead of $20. And there are a bunch of little books called Starting with Little Things. That's a teaching guide that I did many years ago. I used to teach poetry in schools. They're free. I have a box of about 200 of them at home. I'm going to sell them on Amazon one of these days. But it's a little teaching guide for teaching children to write poetry. But I also use it with adults. Having given birth for the first time, my body comes back to itself. Spine, half a wishbone, doubles back, victorious. Stretch marks on my breasts fade, pale as milk. Around my head, songs from my childhood quiver like moths. They ask to be taken back. They ask forgiveness for having been gone so long. Through my own lips, my mother's voice sings my daughter to sleep. When she sleeps at my breast, I become the oldest person I have ever known. I am younger than I can remember. And I just realized that I was going to read you later another poem about my mother's songs. And there they are in this poem, so I'm going to segue to that right now. That poem was written about 50 years ago. It's in my first book. And this one was written maybe about 10 when I was on a writing residency in Mexico. And I was watching the birds and writing about the birds. And there's one called a banana quit, Q-U-I-T. A very tiny bird, and it never stops moving. And the poem is titled Morning Meditation. It's on my website. Tiny as an infant's fist, a yellow-bellied banana quit is flitting all over this simultaneously blooming and fruit-bearing palm right next to my rooftop terrace. First one I've seen in the 2 whole blessed months I've been here. Too fast for me to snap a photo, it lands on a frond, looks around, is off again, just like my mind. Meanwhile, the great-tailed grackle lords it over the jungle from whatever high peak he's found. Meanwhile, the mockingbird pours out its whole long repertoire to the deaf rising sun. 12 years after her death, I put it together, what I have known all along. This morning, remembering, I saw a little birdie go hop, hop, hop. One more song my mother taught me. Kommt ein Vogel geflogen, before things got tough between us. Now the sun is in the west, and the birds have found their nest. 12 years. We must say our prayers, they say. Thank our Father for this day, 3 songs, 3 birds, my mother's lap, and God. Some words to toss your direction. Call if the going gets rough, and always the promise, I will. This ritual has gone on for years, and still in these everyday waters that keep on rising over our heads, one or the other keeps floundering, one or the other keeps watch. Twice down, never a third, or the cry for rescue. This distance, perhaps the way of all balance. No need for us both to go down. And still the longing, one word of knowing someone knows, tossed out without a line to pull us back in, without a thought to consequence. One bright rescue, helping us want to go on. Words to use with caution. And this is one that I wrote a year after my late husband died in 2017, so I think I must have written this in 2018. And I went back to Akumal, the place where we had this wonderful writing residency, and I wrote the Banana Quit poem. And I went back, and it was the first time without him. And it was okay. I was okay. That was important for me to do that. And I wrote quite a few poems. But this is remembering the conventional words of supposed comfort that people offered to each other after a death. The things you find in the greeting cards. I don't buy those cards anymore. Not with these words in them. Words to use with caution. Oh, but they sounded so good when first I came across them. And for a time I passed them along. May memories bring you comfort. And then I lost the one with whom I shared 49 years. And then, not long after, I saw the bench along the river where he loved to sit and watch the never-ending constellations of ducks, ducklings, and herons shifting, wild geese gliding in for a landing, and off again they'd go. He'd sit because he couldn't walk much further, and I needed to walk at a faster pace, another 20 minutes or so, because he wanted to take care also of me, because he took such joy in simply being. Know him not there. Fierce and sudden tears punched and did not stop until back home a neighbor with griefs of her own put her arms around me and held me a long, long silent time. Friends, those memories nearly knocked me right down. How it was that only over my own dead body would any stranger ever whisk you off to some cold, dark drawer, all alone. You, my knight in shining armor, whose brilliance failed to fade, as happens to so many others during the happily ever after. And so, after the children and I had held each other and wept till we could catch our breath again, I called the one I'd talked to days before. She came, and with her grace, she helped me take off your hospital gown, wash your yielding form, helped me put on your best red plaid shirt and the gray sweater vest I years ago bought, which you hated until it became your favorite, and then you hated to take it off. In her van, she brought you home. And by the time she left, you lay in a pale gold hand-woven willow basket just high enough to cradle you on the long portable table she put up next to your desk, where every morning for years after rising, I knew to find you, as I did the following day, and the next, and sat within the rim of your indisputable absence, the enormity of your stillness erasing all impulse towards words. How it was that despite all of your armor dimming to dusk, flowers, as if by magic, swirled around us throughout each long, slow afternoon. Wine, friends with their silent farewell behind doors closed 3 days to keep the room cool. Dry ice under your torso helping us keep you longer. Days in which the ever after of our tale was slowly, silently, imperceptibly turning into the opening lines of one I'd never heard told before or dared to imagine. How it was that the longer I sat in the spell of your departure, the fuller my lungs became, the air in them denser, almost pillar solid, as though every breath I took was not mine alone, but yours within me, mysterious and trustworthy ballast that grounded me throughout your long, slow burning. And despite what convention or logic or doctrine would have us believe, holds me up still. A poem for Dorothy Stafford. I was so blessed to have William Stafford as one of my mentors, just by total good fortune. I never dreamed that when I married my poet husband, Ralph Salisbury, who taught at the U of O, that would give me access to the Stafford family. And I was just very blessed. And once, a few years before Bill died, they had us staying with them for an overnight at their mountain retreat in Sisters. And then the year after he died, Dorothy had us come for a weekend, for an overnight with some other friends at their mountain retreat. Last time here, we'd numbered 4. Rolf and I had slept in their bedroom while they slept under pines and stars on the outside deck till dawn, when he had risen, as was his custom, and wrote a poem before we opened our eyes. Now, 3 of us were here again, this time with other longtime friends and one new one, the young photographer who'd driven Dorothy from her Lake Oswego home. How cheerful we all were. How we reveled in the view, the meadow, the fresh, crisp air. How we offered tales of travels, treated each other to brand new poems, all things sunny and bright. Till mealtime swung around, the time to toast. Around our group, we could hear the wilderness listen. Dorothy looked at each of us in turn. She raised her own glass high. To life, she said. To life, we echoed. Listen, the mountains still pass it along. I think my time is probably close to up. Maybe
You got time. It's a guideline. There's no
Okay.
priority.
Thank you. Another major influence, not an influence, just a theme that runs through my work, on a parallel thread to wanting my poems to help people enjoy life more or endure it better, is my sense of obligation, really, to protest that which I see worthy of protest. I mean, how else do I say that? And there's a lot to protest these days, right? We wouldn't have any trouble finding a lot to write about. During the Vietnam War, I was working with Ralph. That's when we really met each other. He was editor of Northwest Review. I was the managing editor. And during the Vietnam War, we put out an issue called the Protest and Affirmation Issue. The thought being that protest and affirmation have to walk hand in hand. That anger alone, I mean, we need to call attention, we need to bear witness, all that's very important, and we need to support each other's vision of it. You know, you're not imagining things when you see this. We're writing about it. But then we also need to keep each other going and keep wonder and alive and the things that we live for, and keep that in front of us too. And so that's a theme that's gone through almost all of my work. And I've got one or two more I could read. This is a protest poem, just a plain protest poem. And it's not about war and peace, although a number of them are. I wrote this one when I went back to Mexico in 2018. And it's about the, well, you'll see. It's about a fish. The fish's name is grouper. And there are some grouper that are endangered, and more so. And they used to be very plentiful, and they're not so much. And I had this conversation with a waiter, like, aren't groupers endangered? He says, no, they're plentiful. And then that same night, I met a woman who is a underwater videographer, and she showed me this video of groupers and their mating dance out in the Atlantic Ocean. And the groupers all come together from hundreds of miles away for a few days, and they do this dance. If on the menu grouper didn't appear, or when it did, the words of warning facing extinction were right next to the price. If tourists could look past the lure of exotic, if grouper were not so tasty, flaky, firm, and almost no bones, if pesos didn't revolve around grouper, nor lives of cooks and waiters with families of 6 in one room, if grouper never made courtship sounds and didn't gather each year from hundreds of miles around, if undersea microphones were never designed to eavesdrop for days on end to the world's largest mating dance of the most intricate pairing, of spotted, slowly changing reds and browns, circling, spiraling, swirling, and coupling, if overfishing at sites of mating did not threaten, if overfishing meant breaking a law and the penalties harsh, if beauty and wonder could put food on the table, if conscience could shelter each head, if in our fragmented minds opposing realities never dangled like these sentences, like the future of our world, if the lures of hope were never two more kind of short. And I just realized putting that poem up against what I'm just now going to read, I've done it twice now. Ended a line with the word never and no period. This poem appeared just in last December in the online journal Tikkun, a journal of Jewish philosophy. It's a wonderful statement they make, working for world peace and understanding. And this poem was selected last summer. It didn't appear until December because it's my response, which took many years, kind of cutting back and cutting back and cutting back. My response to the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in 2012. For those of you who don't know about it, there were 20 children and one teacher were killed. First graders. And the poem is titled Prayer. And there's a epigraph. On retreat in Mexico, news arrives from the north. It's in 3 short parts. I've lifted my face to the great night sky, but any wonder I used to feel is gone. And what are the songs of birds who once brought joy, nothing but blind instinct, the staking of claims? Which parts of the jungle are theirs and theirs alone, ways to find each other over earth's constant low hum, fierce wind in the palms, yesterday starting like any other, waving goodbye, lunch buckets in hands, and the crack of the gun that does not stop, and the blood, and the children who never. Water, great giver and taker, help me to remember how to cradle wonder and still bear witness to horror and grief, how to let protest and beauty share the same beats of the heart. All the way from the wet, level edge of the world, the long, long path of the rising moon shimmers and streams right to your feet and mine, no matter on which shore, which continent we stand. Mukilteo Ferry, which is north of Seattle. I was on my way to a writing residency at Hedgebrook on Whidbey Island. This was in 2001, but it could be any time. Anytime. After the long drive north, relentless the traffic, relentless the heightened news of yet another alert. After each car, each truck has clanged from dock to steel-plated deck and parked, and I get out to stand at the stern. Light wind, clouds breaking, and the quaking of tethered engines. Beyond this iron chain, the dark water churning. Without warning, the cloak of a great calm descends upon me. Like the very word upon, the way it slows the sentence down. A measured word, hinged. The way fish in their inscrutable expressions hang immobile, as though rooted each to its own place. And I enter again into the beneficence of the world of water, whose rhythms will not be hurried, into whose covenant, under the ancient composure of stars, we pull anchor and begin to sail. So, sail with me. Should I ask ask if anybody has questions, or what do you think? Comments? It's all yours.
Okay. Wasn't that terrific? So like Ingrid had mentioned, she's got a couple of books back there. So we're going to take a couple minutes break. There's 2 sign-up sheets in the back. One is for the mailing list. So if you want to be on the mailing list, sign up on the mailing list. And if you want to be on the open mic, sign up on the open mic list. There's also some brownies back there. So eat the brownies so I don't have to eat the brownies. And we'll come back in a couple of minutes.